This is the Universal Wrestling Podcast. Inside the ring, outside the ring, it's all here.
We're talking about the greatest sport of all, professional wrestling.
Now here's your host,
the cream of the crop,
Nick Dieterding.
Come on!
Welcome back to the Universal Wrestling Podcast. My name is Nick Dieterding. His name is Chris Dunn, and we have a very lovely guest on the show today, Chelsea Green. Chelsea, thanks for coming on. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I mean, you could call me Chelsea Green or about the 101 other names I've had in the past 7 years.
Chris, this is the last week of the fundraiser. Do you want to say anything before we get started?
Yeah, I think this podcast is dropping tomorrow, Friday, the 20th. We will be taking donations for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society up until noon on Sunday. The wrestling community has been great. The AEW auction item, I'm waiting on the final figures now that that's closed, but right before closing yesterday, it was at $5,000. We're as a team, our team is approaching $100,000. So please, everyone's been really great about this. If you haven't donated, whether it's $5, $1, $10, do whatever you can. It just means a lot.
Absolutely. And Chelsea, we really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on and helping us support such an amazing cause and making, awareness for such a great cause. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Chris.
It's awesome to get to speak to you because at WWE, we didn't really get to work together too much. You were on my call list briefly, kind of during the end of my time there. But one thing I always remember about you, in particular, is at NXT, whether or not you had anything on the show or not, you were always in the promo rooms at Full Sail and then the Performance Center, working on different characters, always putting in great work. Probably more so than anyone else there, and I think it really shows in the character you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I have slowly learned. I was trying to figure out, I think, for the better half of my career, what's my thing, as a wrestler, what's your thing? Deonna's thing is that she's an amazing wrestler, technical wrestler. A lot of people are high flyers or whatever their little niche is. And I finally learned coming to WWE and NXT, okay, my thing is actually my character work. And it doesn't actually I don't need to be some amazing wrestler. I don't need to be able to do a million things. If what I do well, which is the character stuff and speaking and coming up with ideas and stuff like that. And WWE was really good at helping me, just kind of be able to blow that up. Cause I just really didn't know that that's what I was good at until I got there.
Yeah. It was always frustrating because your call up was right around when the pandemic started. And, at the time, you were going to come to Raw and everyone's so excited to have you because when you have a 3-hour show, kind of really fulfill that need that's important of being able somebody who can do character work can really carry a thread throughout the night. And unfortunately, obviously the world changed in such a big way where it was harder to debut people, but you were somebody who everyone was really excited about. And after you left, I heard you do a podcast where I wanted to bring something up to you, where you were kind of talking about how you're worried because you're always pitching ideas that you're going on people's nerves. It was the opposite. Because a lot of times, and I think this holds a lot of wrestlers back, they'll just pitch the old Bob Holly story of hey, right where I won the title, you were pitching actual characters and actual stories and very smart things, and really kind of saw a lane that I think is really putting you in such a good position today.
I mean, that's the thing. I worried for so long, but I worried that I was annoying people, but at the same time, I also didn't care. I also knew that you hired me for one reason. You didn't hire me.
I did not hire you.
Yeah.
I was a writer or AKA middleman.
You as in the beast that is the company. hired me because of my character work, right? You didn't hire me because I can do 450 or whatever. So then I just thought, like, once I kind of let go of caring and being worried, that's when I was like, I came up with, I think, very creative ideas. Whether people like them or not, at least it gives people ideas, and it gives people the feeling that, okay, she's not just sitting home collecting a paycheck. She's actually thinking about these things on her days off or on the days that she should be on TV, which, I mean, if I was running a company, I would want people on my side like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt that way. And like, you know, you weren't the only person coming up. We're trying to generate ideas for a lot of different people. And I just remember, like, you know, we kind of, on the main roster, we're watching your promos that you cut. Cause, you know, at the time Heyman was running Raw. And like,
he's my biggest supporter.
Yeah, he was such a big advocate for you. And like, we're all brainstorming ideas. Like, one idea I pitched him was essentially like, you know, back in the day, if you look at like the 80s, probably like wrestling is such a, like, the stories that really do well are relationship stories.
Yeah.
And like, you kind of look at the 80s, the best relationship that you could never pay off was Hogan and Mean Gene. And at one point I pitched, like, do we make Chelsea an interviewer on Raw for like 6 to 9 months as a way to kind of get her into a program with Becky? And like, that's one thing I was like advocating, like, in a big way. Unfortunately, again, like, everything changed, but it kind of feels like
have been awesome though. And do you know what's funny is that that's a storyline that I have kept in my back pocket to pitch over and over again, because I also, when I was coming up in wrestling, thought maybe wrestling isn't for me. Maybe I like doing backstage stuff because that's kind of a passion of mine. So that's really funny that that's something that you had suggested too, because that would have been so on my wavelength.
Yeah, it would, like, just relationship stuff is like so great. It's kind of one of the reasons why, you know, I'm excited to kind of see where your career goes with Deonna and Britt, because I feel like the three of you together in a story is one day going to make somebody, hopefully, you know, a lot of money. So
I hope so. I really hope so. And I love that people are finally realizing that this is a friendship that, you know, goes back quite a way, and we've come up together, and it's been kind of a crazy journey for all of us.
Yeah, it's you guys have like complement each other so well. When did you first meet both of them?
So we all kind of met around the same time. We were all coming up and getting tryouts with WWE around 2015. Right before I did Tough Enough is when the funny thing is, we didn't live anywhere close to each other. I'm from the west coast of Canada. Deonna is from New Jersey, and Britt is from Pennsylvania. So we actually only connected through social media, but we were always advocating for each other. Like, no matter what show I went to, if they asked who I wanted to work, I always said one of those two, and they did the same thing. And slowly but surely, we would work each other on all these indie shows. And we realized we built a friendship through social media, but we realized, like, you really can't get far in this industry unless you support each other and you kind of have a good group of girls. I mean, especially for women's wrestling, you need a good group of girls to travel with, to trust, to rely on for all these things. And a lot of our best bookings have come from suggesting each other for everything. I mean, even at WWE and NXT, like, Deonna and I were really pushing to do stuff together, even though we are so opposite in the ring, because we knew that friendship is real. And now, you know, Britt's at AEW pushing really hard to have Deonna on as a joker, or have me on, like, come in and do stuff with her. And that's, I mean, it's now we're going like 7 years strong with friendship.
Yeah, it was amazing. I remember, I think we were in like Iowa maybe, and Deonna had like a match, and like I saw you two after, and like, it was such like an emotional moment. I think Deonna was working on Asuka, and it was just like, you can't, there's a lot of unfortunately worked friendships in this business, but it's such a real, genuine one where it's just very nice to see. And I think your conversations together and everything you guys do on social media, it really comes across the fans in such a good way.
And that's like, I actually think that people really did maybe think it was like a worked friendship for a while, but I think COVID exposed good things and bad things in everything in life. And I think one thing it really did was bring the three of us together and also let the people know, like, oh no, we actually live 8 minutes away from each other. I live 3 minutes from Deonna, 8 minutes from Britt. We talked last night at 1 a.m. We talk every single day. Like, that is a very, very real friendship that, they were my bridesmaids, and it's not going anywhere, whether we wrestle or not.
It's so nice to see. Like, and so since you've left WWE, I feel there's like a group of people like Deonna, Matt, you, who have just kind of become their own brand in a way. Like, what is like the biggest lesson you've learned? Because it kind of feels like no matter what promotion you're working, what event you're working, like you've kind of become your own thing in like a really cool, interesting way.
I really think that the one thing that I've always lived by, and I don't even think I think I just figured it out as I went, but it's totally fake it till you make it. And and like, I will forever be faking it until I make it. I don't know when making it is, because I think when I hit the make it mark, I change what that is. But like, I was so sad when I was released by WWE, but I totally faked that, like, no, this wasn't going to phase me. And I put myself out there right away. And I probably 10 minutes after I got fired, I was already in contact with Ring of Honor and with Impact and NWA, because I was totally like faking it until I debuted again and made it again. And every time I go out into the audience for a match, I'm totally like putting on that mask of confidence. And I don't think anyone is as confident in themselves as they make themselves out to be, but fake it till you make it. And I feel like it works really. And, like the brand that is me is hopefully just going to grow because I'm confident in myself, or at least I'm going to say I am.
Yeah, that's great advice. I always kind of look at like making it as like retirement. Like,
I know, I'm like, I really think it might be retirement, or maybe it's like when you buy your dream home. Like, I don't know what it is, because I do think that people in this industry, like in kind of the show business industry, whatever they do, they're always looking for the next best thing. When they hit a goal, they set another goal. And I think that's why we're all here, right? Is because everyone is just looking for the next best thing in a good way, in a good way.
Absolutely. We had Scotty Too Hottie on the program a couple of weeks ago, and he said your husband was an inspiration for him to get back onto the independent circuit. I want to know your thoughts on, the impact of your husband, because it's a big deal and it's awesome to see.
I mean, I have just seen this amazing evolution in 5 years of being with him, because I knew his potential. Of course I knew his potential. Like, I loved him. So yeah. I knew what he was going to be able to do, but he was never able to do it at WWE. And it was so unfortunate. He had these amazing times, these amazing moments, and moments that nobody can take away from him, that a lot of fans cherish. But like, that's nothing compared to what he did the minute he left. And he has really helped me. I think we've kind of helped each other, like, just keep going. I mean, he is nonstop, whether it's his podcast, it's like making new business ventures, putting on his own shows, going and getting himself booked. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm just so happy that the world gets to see now what I always saw. I think everyone
of course
put him in a bubble or a little box as like, this is Zack Ryder and he's always going to be a baby face. And it's such a silly thing to think, right? Because the rest of us, we ebb and flow, and we are good guys and bad guys, but he never was able to experience that. And I knew he could do it. And I'm so happy that the rest of the world is along for the ride, because it's crazy that the things that he's done is just like, we could have never imagined that he was going to trend over the Olympics or UFC. Like, it's just insane.
Yeah.
It's like, I understand why it's like was hard for people to turn him heel, because like he has like universal approval rating of like 100, more so than most people, like whether it's wrestlers, producers, or writers, crew members, catering. He's a beloved person. And like,
Yes.
one of the things I always respected about him, like, and unfortunately I didn't have a chance to work with him all that much, but like, as a fan, he always maximized whatever TV time he had. Like, there was like a collapsible segment on Raw, I think it was like maybe 2019, and like him and Hawkins went out for a tag, and there was a pre-match promo in Gorilla, and it was like literally 30 seconds. Something was thrown at them, and like they came up with the idea of essentially like, they haven't been out in the arena in a while, like wondering if they still have pyro after pyro has been killed by WWE.
I remember that.
And they get like so psyched, and they go like, you see them walking to the ring. It's just like, it's 30 seconds, but it's such an enjoyable moment where like it really brings you in. And I think the people that are smart enough to see that like every single second you're on TV, it counts, are smart enough to maximize it. And like, I think now what you're seeing him do is somebody who knows how to maximize everything every time he is in the public.
And that's actually exactly it. There's been a lot of times where he has to remind me, and it's so silly, but like, no, you should get a spray tan. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's like this little indie show. Like, what if someone sees you? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's annoying. But I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like, he's always done that. He does it on every show, on every pre-tape, on every TV segment, on his podcast, on the internet. Like, and he's always done that. And that's another kind of reason why I think it was always hard to imagine him as a heel, was because he's so relatable.
Yeah.
Like, he might be big and jacked and tan, but like at the end of the day, like his heart and his soul he's just a wrestling nerd. Like, he's just every other person that sits there and watches. He loved wrestling, he loved action figures, and like he's just continuing to do that, but he's just grown up. And I think that that's like a really likable quality about him.
Yeah, obviously he has a very long in-ring career left too, but he's a person who I think is going to be phenomenal behind the scenes when he decides to hang it up, just because.
Well, let's see, because he hates teaching people.
Really?
That's one like fact about him. Like, that's something that really differs Brian Myers or Hawkins from Matt. Is Brian is such an amazing teacher, and Matt's like, I hate teaching people. So it's going to be really interesting where Matt goes.
One question to kind of looking at overall wrestling, our friends at the Public Enemies podcast wanted me to ask when they heard we were having you on was, how does it make you feel, like all the changes to women's wrestling over the past 10 years? Like, could you believe everything that like, women are now main eventing WrestleMania? Like, it's, NXT, for example, used like 25 women in a 2-hour show, which like 10 years ago would be unheard of. AEW is building their women's division in such a big way. Like, how do you feel like things have changed, and also like where do you think things kind of need to go in the future?
I think the turning point really, and I realized this quickly, was around 2014 with Emma versus Paige. Like, that really was the turning point, right? Like the whole hashtag and everything. I really think it's only gone up from there. And it's funny because in that moment in 2014 going into 2015, I remember thinking like, gosh, I wonder what's going to happen from this. And then we got longer matches. And then I thought, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next. And then we got 2 matches on a show. It's so hard to even try to figure out like, where are we going next? Like, I don't know, because there are certain things where I'm like, oh, maybe there could be an all-girls show, but that's been tossed around and we've heard rumors of that and things. Oh, maybe women could main event WrestleMania, and then that's happened. Like, it's so mind-blowing, and I don't even know where we could possibly go from here, because I think it's just a matter of like, let's just ride this really awesome wave that's going uphill and see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of people that absolutely love intergender wrestling. I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, I've had a lot of intergender matches. I love them. And then I've also seen some intergender matches that really like freak me out. And so I go both ways, but I think making maybe intergender wrestling more mainstream might be something that a lot of women, if you ask them this question, would say. They at the end of the day, I think women just want to be treated as equals. And so once that pay scale equals out, and once we kind of treat women the same way we treat men, I mean, then, but it's so hard because even then we're going to be thinking of like, what's next after that? I mean, I just got powerbombed through a table by Big Cass the other day, and the amount of strange comments from men saying like that Impact shouldn't do that. And I just thought like, oh, would we say that about a man? Like, I'm training the same way every other man is in that ring getting powerbombed. I'm actually bigger than a lot of the dudes in Impact. Like, I'm taller and bigger than probably Chris Bay and Trey. So there's like all these little things that I'm like, I think we could still get there. We could still work on it, but we're just doing so well that I couldn't, if you had have asked me in 2014, if I thought all of this was possible, that Sasha and Bayley would have one of the best matches we've ever seen, period. Like, I just wouldn't have even imagined it.
Yeah, it's wild. And it's such great progress. I remember like, when Sasha, Charlotte.
Did I say Sasha and Bayley? I meant Sasha and Bianca.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Sasha's had a lot of good matches. So,
but you know what? I will say that Sasha and Bayley in that match at NXT, also one of the best matches.
We're down the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all three of them are awesome, and like just it's great when they have that platform to really show what they can do.
Hey Chelsea, I know last week rumors, I don't know, I'm assuming they're true, but Sasha and Naomi walked out of Monday Night Raw. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to kind of like pass judgment because for so many different reasons. I mean, I wish I knew more of the story. We're slowly kind of figuring it out. I think it's really unfortunate that it was posted online. I think that that's strange, and it almost made us all feel like, is it real?
Yeah. Is
it not? I've kind of slowly learned that yes, it is real. I've always been one that felt like you should stick up for yourself. I won the Impact title in 2018. Hope I'm right with that. 2018. And I asked for my release that night with sitting in bed with the title in my lap. Like, there are just some moments in your life that you've made a decision and you can't go back. You just have to stick to your guns. Maybe that's what happened to them.
Yeah.
I don't know, and then on the other hand, here I am and I don't have a job. And I wish I was in any position where I don't even care if I have to lay down and get pinned. I wish I had that job. So I go back and forth, but at the end of the day, like, if that's something that they felt they needed to do, you have to stick to it. You can't back out. If that's what you feel, then you better flip and feel it till the end, until you get into your car and you go home. And you know what I mean? Like, stick
absolutely.
to your guns kind of thing.
Yeah. More power to them,
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess like, Chelsea, like with where you are now, like what for the next year, it's really been like an amazing ride watching you. Like, you've had great matches against so many people. Like, I'm glad like you and Mickey finally got to, be in the ring together. What are your kind of goals for the next year for yourself?
I think my main goal really is to, I've always wanted to transcend wrestling. I think a lot of us feel that way, but I felt like that was my goal from the beginning. I loved wrestling, but I didn't grow up as a huge diehard fan. I grew up with a love for just like entertaining people and character work. And I fell into wrestling because it was something that kind of called to me in that moment. So I think that one thing I want to do this year, because I have so much freedom and I really don't have any company holding me down. I'm not contracted to anyone. I just want to work on character work. And I've been taking acting classes. So whether that means auditioning for roles, whether it means going out there and trying to be a host of a TV show or a YouTube show or a game show or something, just doing things outside of wrestling that really are going to, I hope, benefit me in the long run, and also, benefit my in-ring career wherever I end up. But at this point, I mean, I'm a free agent, so I can really do whatever I want. We'll see what happens.
It's awesome, man. Like I think like the one thing as we kind of start wrapping up, like I hope people just realize, like, when it comes to, first off, like, if you're going to be successful in this field, you have to be like all in and really bust your ass. And it's one of the reasons I've always had a lot of respect for you, Chelsea, and was excited to have you on, just because you are a hard worker. You put sweat equity in, and I'm excited to see where your career goes.
Thank you. One thing that I always tell people when like they ask me about, like what's one piece of advice, it's always just like, set your goals. That's great. We should all have goals and bigger goals and bigger goals. But like, I think that while you take that journey to your goal, realize that all the stops along the way are actually the things you're going to look back on and be really thankful for. Because I tried for, 5 years, 6 years to get to WWE. And I look back now and I think like, yes, I got to WWE and that was amazing, but actually winning the Impact title, being one of the only women on All In, main eventing against Pentagon on Lucha Underground, doing all these things along the way are actually like what makes me me and what makes my career mine and special. And, people forget that. And that's just something like I always want people to remember. Just stop focusing on the goal and just like enjoy the flipping journey.
That's smart. And like, I think like one thing that really benefits you and some of the other people we spoke about too is like when you're, a lot of the biggest wrestlers in history, like they would work from like territory to territory. Now everything's like a little bit different. From you bouncing around to all the things you just said is really just it's one of the reasons you're such a great performer and like, have such a good mind for the business.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end the show. Chelsea, thank you so much for coming on again to support such an amazing cause. Give the people what they want. How can they find you?
Oh my gosh, this is the worst part of interviews for me because I hope I get it right. Yeah. Lord only knows if I do. I think my Instagram is at Chelsea A Green and my Twitter is at I'm Chelsea Green. But you know what?
Yeah, just Google.
If it's not, then you're welcome to the Chelsea Greens that I just tagged.
There you go. Chris, last week of the fundraiser, I'm going to give it to you. End it here, brother. What do we got?
Yeah, it ends on Sunday the 22nd at noon. The link will be in the promotion for this podcast. And hey, if you're a dirt sheet and you're covering this, you always link it too. There's no harm, no foul.
There we go.
We're giving you content. You can, give us a little.
Cool. Well, thank you again. Peace.